Isaiah Campbell might be Tennessee's newest five-star, but one other class of 2025 signee made an even bigger jump in the final On300 rankings. Who was it? And which college football playoff team loser is most likely to win it all next season? Where does Tennessee rank in that list? All that and more at your Monday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. You guys know it. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Super Bowl 59. It's here. It's game week, right? There's no better place to make every moment more exciting than over at FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. You can download the app or head on over to FanDuel.com to go ahead and get started the day. So an exciting week in the sports calendar. That is this week with the big game coming up this weekend. Got a fun show coming up today. Grant Ramey is going to stop in segment number 2 to recap, in my opinion, one of the best wins of the Rick Barnes era, and he said pretty much as much after the game. We'll talk to Grant Ramey about Tennessee's just destroying Florida on its home court, down to only 7 scholarship players, down 2 starters. What a showing for Tennessee basketball, what that win means moving forward. Grant Ramey coming up in segment 2. Tennessee baseball made an interesting new addition to the roster late on a Friday night. I'll tell you all about who that is and what that could mean for Tennessee's lineup. Just now, 11 days away from opening day, so that's pretty exciting. But first here in segment number 1, DaSaahn Brame might be the biggest winner in all of the recruiting, this recruiting cycle for Tennessee. Sure, Isaiah Campbell is a newly minted 5-star. We discussed that on the show on Friday, and that's big stuff. Of course, he made a jump. According to the On3 industry rankings, he's a 5-star. 31st overall prospect in the country, 4th best defensive lineman, 2nd in the state of North Carolina, where he is from, Durham. The final rendition of the On3 rankings has him at number 30 overall in the class. And so we talked about Isaiah Campbell on Friday's show, but there was one other player that made just a huge jump in the final 300 rankings, and that was tight end signee DaSaahn Brame. And, DaSaahn Brame's a guy that, of course, Tennessee was super, super excited about, coveted, had him on here for an official visit. He went ahead and committed to Oregon in the month of July, or maybe it was early August, and it was kind of surprising because he had hit it off so well with Tennessee, and you thought Tennessee had some momentum. Well, he committed to Oregon for all of, I want to say maybe 2 weeks. I mean, it wasn't long at all, and he flipped and committed to Tennessee, and already instantly when he committed back in August or whatever, he was Tennessee's one of the highest rated prospects in the class. And of course, he and Jack Van Dorselaer are the 2 tight ends in this class, formed a really good relationship, and 2 big time additions on the offense side of the football. And now both of those guys are early enrollees, and they both signed in December and all that. But of course, as we talked about on Friday, the final rankings were released over the weekend, or last week rather, and for 247, ESPN Rivals and all that, On300 was the last one, and DaSaahn Brame jumped 114 spots. He was considered, prior to last week, according to On3, the number 166th best prospect in the class, and after these latest rankings, he jumped up to number 62, meaning he, plus 114. And that is quite the movement there, one of the biggest movements in all the SEC in terms of the class of 2025. So made a whole lot of mention of Isaiah Campbell on Friday, and deservedly so, but I failed to mention DaSaahn Brame, and I knew I just didn't have time, but I wanted to make mention about this. What a movement there, and of course On3 is super, super high on Tennessee's tight end signee and DaSaahn Brame. You look at where he is according to On3, the number 62 in the nation. 247 has it number 66. ESPN, that's very much an outlier because it just makes no sense why they even try recruiting anymore. 193. And then, of course, over at Rivals, Brame's actually the highest ranked at number 42. So all of the reputable recruiting sites that actually put some effort into it are very, very high on DaSaahn Brame. So I thought that was really, really interesting there. And so I think he's going to be a guy, Cole Harrison, who was a late addition, committed the night before signing day last December. Not this past December, the one before that. Redshirted this year, but, the coaches seem to really, really like him. And, Tennessee ran a whole lot of 12 personnel this year with Miles Kitzelman and Holden Stays, and Ethan Davis was the 3. And you can't run 12 personnel if you don't have 3 tight ends, because Tennessee uses 2 tight ends, just a normal base set of 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 1 running back. And Cole Harrison might jump up and be that 3rd tight end so that they don't have to live in 12 personnel, but they have the ability to run it and lean on it, just like they did in 2024. Cole Harrison could be that guy, but if not, one of these 2 freshmen, Jack Van Dorselaer or DaSaahn Brame, could step up and kind of have that role as a true freshman. So I'll be intrigued to see what happens. But, Isaiah Campbell, 5-star along with David Sanders. And, of course, Tennessee, after the latest rendition of the On300, Tennessee's 10th overall in the class, it's team ranking 7th in the SEC, as we mentioned on Friday. But also DaSaahn Brame, a big mover from 166 to 62 plus 114, and I think that goes to show you what everybody thinks of the potential for Tennessee's tight end signee, DaSaahn Brame from Derby, Kansas, who I will remind you returned punts at the high school level. He did it all, and super excited to see what he looks like here at Tennessee. Before we get to Grant Ramey, I do want to remind you guys as well. Questions, comments, concerns on tomorrow's show, mailbag edition of Locked On Vols. We do it every single Tuesday, so please send in any questions, any comments, Tennessee football, recruiting, basketball, baseball, whatever the questions are. You can ask me a question at _Caner at Locked On Vols, and of course you can comment on the YouTube channel, or you can find me on Instagram as well. I'll try to answer those questions too. Before we get into Grant Ramey, there was an interesting article over from our friend David Cobb at CBS Sports. David Cobb, formerly on the Tennessee beat for the Chattanooga Times Free Press, and a good guy, does a great job with what he does. But of course, he's been over at CBS for the last couple of years, reporting on both college basketball and college football. And he put out an interesting article that I saw over the weekend that I thought was, pretty something worth exploring on this show. Essentially, of the college football playoff losers, who is most likely to win it all next year? And of course, we know that Ohio State, won the college football playoff this year, but of the 11 other teams who made the dance, who were a part of the 12-team college football playoff, he ranked them 11 all the way down to 1 on likelihood of winning it all next year. Where does Tennessee come in this ranking? Well, Tennessee comes in at number 7. This is what David Cobb has to say about Tennessee in this regard. Quote, "The retention of coveted defensive coordinator Tim Banks and the potential improvement in quarterback Nico Iamaleava give Tennessee a shot at returning to the CFP, but it's hard to see how the Volunteers will be better in 2025 after losing stars like Dylan Sampson and James Pierce to the NFL draft. Of course, a more favorable draw could make all the difference for the Vols, who were sent to an execution at Ohio State in the first round." Again, if you seeded these teams off of ranking and got, done with the automatic buys and all that crap, Tennessee would have had a home playoff game and would have likely hosted SMU. And, I thought SMU was a pretty good ball club this year, but we saw kind of running out of gas there towards the end, losing in an epic ACC showdown in the championship to Clemson, and then, of course, getting drilled by Penn State on the road in Happy Valley. And Tennessee got drilled at Ohio State. I recognize that, but as we saw, first-round home matchups, man, they might make all the difference in the world. And if Tennessee was hosting a team in the first round this year, say it was SMU, maybe that's a completely different story. Say they make that change next year. Say Tennessee is seeded 7th and is ranked 7th or whatever. Maybe that can make all the difference in the world. That's kind of what this is saying right here. So Tennessee's at number 7. It's in front of Arizona State at 8, SMU at 9, Indiana at 10, Boise State at 11, and of course, the G5 team there at number 11 makes all the sense in the world. But in front of Tennessee on this list, so Tennessee was kind of, back half, but towards the middle. Clemson's at number 6, and that makes sense because Kay Klubnik is probably going to be one of the highly ranked quarterback. We already done a couple of these quarterback lists here early in the offseason. His name is high up on all those lists, and it makes sense. He had a really, really good statistical year, and, the ACC is kind of top-heavy. Of course, they got some transfers as well this offseason, which is very, very different. And they got Tom Allen from Penn State. So Clemson's there at number 6. I have no issue there. Notre Dame at 5. They got to replace Riley Leonard, of course. Oregon's at 4. What's Dante Moore look like? He's got to be a whole lot better than he was at UCLA a couple of years ago. Georgia's at 3. Who's playing quarterback? What does Stockton look like? Penn State's at number 2. Texas is at number 1, and I think, Texas was a pretty solid team this year, but I still think there's a whole lot of unproven stock in Arch Manning right now, and that's why his name and Texas is going to be so high up these lists as well throughout the offseason. But Texas got a good program, and it makes some sense that they're kind of topping this list. But Tennessee's at number 7. I think that's probably about right, given Nico's first year, losing James Pierce, Dylan Sampson, and a lot of the questions that are not answered yet, wide receiver, offensive line, so on and so forth. Where would you rank Tennessee in terms of college football playoff losers? Who could win it all next year? Where would Tennessee be in this list for you? CBS Sports has Tennessee 7 out of the 11 teams. I'd probably have Tennessee around 6 or 5, but that's just me. Hey, coming up next, Grant Ramey joining us, VolQuest.com. Was this the best win of the Rick Barnes era? Maybe not the best win. Was this the most impressive win of the Rick Barnes era? That's coming up next as we continue here with a Monday morning edition of Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on all the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. A live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what's happening on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing you can place place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's just icing on the cake. Download the app today or head on over to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5 and you can win. If you win, you can score $200 in bonus bets. That's at FanDuel.com or on the safe, secure, easy-to-use app. FanDuel.com, where you can make every single moment more. FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. Grant Ramey, VolQuest.com, joining the show here today. Tennessee coming off, just what a win over the weekend. A 20-point drubbing, 64-44. Shorthanded, 7 scholarship players. Zakai Zeigler didn't play. Igor Milicic didn't play. Of course, Tennessee's already shorthanded. First and foremost, Grant, thanks for joining the show. Was this the most impressive win of the Rick Barnes era? Rick Barnes, he had a lot of great things to say about this win post-game, but I want your opinion. Maybe not the best win, but was this the most impressive?
No, the best win I think was at Creighton. Against Creighton in the NCAA tournament last year. Because since they had been to the Sweet 16 a few times under Rick, they really needed to win that game. They really needed to get back to the Elite Eight for just the second time in program history. They went to Alabama and won. They've won a lot in Rupp under Rick. So there's a lot of other wins that kind of stack up against this one. This one might be the most impressive response, most impressive situation that they overcome, adversity just in terms of who they are missing in Zakai Zeigler and Igor Milicic and how much they rely on those guys, what those guys do game in and game out. And not only that, the last 2 weeks. 3 losses the last 4 games. This team started 14-0. They were ranked number 1 for 5 weeks in a row. Like, they needed some kind of response. They needed some kind of statement. And they got one at home against a team that had beat them by 30 3 weeks ago in Gainesville. So it was as impressive of a performance and an answer, I guess, to a really tough situation that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that's just another layer to this game I didn't even mention. Tennessee fell for first loss of the season, and boy, did they make it count. 30-point loss on the road to Florida back on January the 7th. This is towards the first of the new year. And the response from that game, and of course everything that's happened, Tennessee loses a 3 of 4. It felt like Rick Barnes, I don't want to say he was snippy or anything, but it's kind of like he was getting tired of the questions at the media availability on Friday. You were there. Tell me about it. You guys essentially saying, hey, how's the temperature of the locker room? Things aren't great. And his response was kind of like, guys, I've done this forever. Like, we're good. And certainly they look good on Saturday.
That kind of started on Tuesday night in his post-game after Kentucky when we kind of just kept pestering him with questions that he wasn't really wanting to keep answering. At one point he said, look, we've lost 4 games. We're not that bad of a basketball team. We're not in that bad of a place. He said, we've lost 4 games against 4 good teams, all that stuff. And then Friday it was like, what's this team need to do to see some shots go down? How badly does this team need to see shots go in early in the game? How does this team score it better? Like, what do you do when people are daring you to shoot threes, but you don't want to just sit there and jack up threes all the time? Like, and at some point it was like, enough's enough. Like, he was tired of this line of questioning. It was, again, like, we've lost 4 games against 4 teams that were ranked at one point in time. They're all good basketball teams. That was he's usually joking in a good mood. He was a little bit aggravated. He was a little bit tired. I think those 2 weeks had worn on everybody. And I think you saw a little bit of a kind of a release valve against Florida with the way they played to kind of take some of that frustration out on an opponent and play a lot better at home in front of their home crowd, in front of a great atmosphere Saturday, opposed to how they kind of let down on Tuesday.
What was the turning point of the game? Because to me, again, I was actually over there watching baseball at the time, and I had an earbud in, and I was listening to Bob and Bert and the Ball Radio Network. And to me, not watching but listening to the game, it certainly felt like the run there to begin the second half. What was it, 9-0, and Tennessee jumped up to 10, just right out of the gate there. I could hear the crowd. It certainly felt like that place was bumping. Was the run there to begin the second half kind of like, okay, Tennessee's got control of this game, and then not only does Tennessee have control of this game, but Tennessee's on its way to just demolishing the Gators?
Let's quote Brent Hubbs and talk about the middle 8 and how important that final 4 minutes is to close the first half and how important that first 4 minutes is to start the second half.
Yeah.
Tennessee kept hanging around. Florida led for, I think, 14 minutes in the first half, almost 14 minutes, something like that. But there was one sequence, one possession where I think it was Darlington Dubar got a block under the rim. Florida got the loose ball. Florida went back to the rim. Cade Phillips blocked the second shot. Then Jemai Meshack corrals the loose ball. He outlets to Chaz Lanier, who hits a pull-up 3 in transition, which is you got to have some guts to take that shot, especially a guy that's been missing shots as badly as he had the last couple times out. That put them up 21-20, something like that. I think that gave them the lead for the first time, and they didn't trail after that. They closed the half really well in the final 3 minutes, and then they started the second half with a really quick 6-0 run, forced a Florida timeout. It wasn't anything crazy, too. It's like a baseline cut. A post feed, a mid-range jumper, like it was good offense, and Florida called a timeout. And I think Florida got a 3-point play out of that timeout, and that was a little bit of momentum for them. But after that, it was like, Tennessee was up 10 in a matter of minutes, and then not long after that, it felt like it was 20, then 21, and it got out of hand that quickly because of that transition there to close the first half to start the second half. And that was all the home crowd needed to kind of help put this team away, and the way that Tennessee was playing on defense, man, that 10-point lead felt like a 30-point lead.
Leading into the game, and I'll get to the status of Zakai Zeigler and Igor Milicic here in a moment, but kind of once we got the news that those guys were out, Tennessee was down to 7 scholarship players, your lineup was going to, was it going to be Boswell? Were they going to move Gainey to the points? D-Stone's going to be in there. Like, I was texting one of my buddies, and I'm like, Tennessee is going to get absolutely waxed unless Chaz Lanier goes off. And I don't feel like I was alone in that thought. I saw plenty of tweets saying, come on, guys, let's give it our best effort. In parentheses, I don't think Tennessee is going to win. It's like, but in typical Rick Barnes fashion, backs against the wall, man, Tennessee just comes out. But it was so much more than Chaz Lanier. Chaz Lanier was great, made 5 3-pointers, had 19 points, and that was a game high, but Tennessee won the turnover battle 7-13. Tennessee dominated points in the paint 34-14. It was just so much more than one guy, and I thought what Jordan Gainey did was super impressive, shifting over to the 1, scoring 16. Wasn't great from behind the arc, but found ways to impact the game in other ways. And, of course, Jemai Meshack was who Jemai Meshack is. Starting probably one of the best highlight reels of Saturday, the turnover steal, Cade Phillips to somebody, back to Phillips with a slam. that was incredible.
If you look at the box score, it's basically the exact opposite of what happened in Gainesville. Points in the paint, turnovers, points off turnovers, second chance points, rebounding, all that stuff. It almost is completely opposite of how that game played out in Gainesville. And I was texting people as well Saturday morning when I was headed to the arena, because it felt like in those situations, you either find a way to rally and you win by 15, 20 points, or you get beat by 30. You get beat by 40, and it's just demoralizing and awful. And I don't know what it is about Jordan Gainey when there's no Zakai Zeigler available. You go back to Illinois in December. Zakai picks up his 3rd and 4th foul on the same possession with 18 minutes left in the game, and he has to go to the bench. And Gainey takes over, and he takes over that game. He scores 18 points over the next 18 minutes. He didn't commit any turnovers. He was just in control. He's, poised. He makes that shot, obviously, at the rim to win the game as time expires, that contested layup after driving coast to coast. He was just as impressive yesterday. The stuff that he did, how poised he was, how in control he was, how he was getting everybody involved. What you're talking about, everybody doing a little bit of something, it feels like there's crooked numbers all over that box score with assists, with rebounds, with blocks, with points. It felt like they only had 7 guys available, but all 7 guys were doing something. I don't think Bishop Boswell was the only guy that didn't score, but he played well. He played more minutes than he has in a long time, and he handled himself well. He was the guy who Jemiah saved it to Cade. Cade outletted it to Bishop. Bishop threw it right back to Cade. There wasn't a single dribble on that play, that huge dunk.
No.
That was another huge moment in the second half. And that was kind of it in a nutshell. That was a hustle play by Jemiah to tip that ball to save it. And then it was heads up to get it to Cade, to get it forward to Bishop, to get it back to Cade. That was just kind of, in a nutshell, everybody doing what they had to do to win that basketball game.
Yeah, it was awesome for sure. I've seen that replay everywhere on social media since the end of the
Yes.
game. Out the door here, of course, you got Mizzou coming up this week on a Wednesday night, going to Oklahoma. Status of Igor, who I believe is just sick, and then what did Rick Barnes have to say about Zakai Zeigler and his availability moving forward?
Igor missed practice Friday because he was dealing with that illness, and he was actually removed from the injury report Saturday morning, so he was available to play technically up until pregame, and he was in the back getting fluids, and he wanted to play. He wanted to try to go, but they just ended up rolling him out not long before the national anthem and the intros and all that stuff, because he never came out to the floor for warm-ups with his teammates. With Zakai, he had an MRI Friday night, no structural damage shown in the MRI according to Rick Barnes, which makes sense because he went back in the game to start second half against Kentucky Tuesday night, and he never came off the floor. He played all 20 minutes in the second half. And I'm not sure if that's something where maybe when the adrenaline wears off, maybe when all that stuff and you kind of settle down, your body, you don't move around as much after a game, you kind of relax a little bit. Maybe it stiffens up, maybe it gets sore, maybe it feels a little bit differently than it did in that moment. Like when he got hurt, he didn't get carried off the floor. He jumped up and kind of did this kind of jog/hobble towards the Tennessee bench and straight into the locker room. So at some point, I guess it became sore. At some point, it became an issue. I don't know kind of what the update's going to be. We'll talk to Rick Tuesday before Missouri comes here on Wednesday. And, man, the SEC schedule, I'll tell you what, it does not let up because Missouri has won 6 out of 7. They just went to Mississippi State and won by 27 against their ranked Mississippi State team. It's tough to win in Starkville when the building's full and when that's a good basketball team. State's kind of reeling right now. And then you look at Saturday, they go to Oklahoma. All Oklahoma did was get down by 13 in the first half against Vanderbilt on Saturday and came back and won by 30. They outscored Vanderbilt close to 40 points in the second half. And Oklahoma's the team that started, I think, 14-0 as well. So there are no days off. There's no breathers in the SEC. Like Tennessee had a huge response against Florida. Now you better have another response ready for Missouri Wednesday night.
Yeah, your body certainly has a way of saying, "Oh yeah, hey, we're hurting right now." Once that adrenaline wears off, that's for sure. All right, Grant, appreciate it as always, man. Thanks so much.
All right, see you, bud.
Great stuff there from Grant Ramey, VolQuest.com. Man, just what a win for Tennessee. And yeah, like I was over, and we're gonna talk a little baseball here in segment 3 because hey, not this Friday, but next Friday, Valentine's Day. What better Valentine's Day gift to the girlfriend, to the wife, than taking her out to Lindsey Nelson Stadium and seeing Tennessee on the opening day action. Nonetheless, I was over there watching Tennessee scrimmage on Saturday, but I had an earbud in, so I was keeping track of the game. And man, it just sounded. I was wishing I could watch it, but goodness gracious, I mean, what a win, what a response, and you know, Rick Barnes is very, very adamant after the game, saying this is one of the most impressive wins that we've had here. He and his staff. Talking about Jordan Gainey, one of the most impressive performances he's had, and Rick Barnes very, very pleased with what his team was able to accomplish on Saturday. So just another example of how incredibly tough this league is. You got Missouri, a team that beats Florida, coming in here to complete this 3-game homestand on Wednesday nights, and I'm excited to kind of see how they look there. But anyway, Tennessee baseball, opening day, the start of the 2025 season that's coming up on January 14th. The reigning national champions made some noise late on a Friday night when it was reported that former North Carolina designated hitter Alberto Osuna is reportedly transferring to Tennessee. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I caught wind of this about a week and a half ago. All right, so I've been keeping tabs on it a little bit. Essentially what this is Osuna, he went to Walter State his first 2 years, 2020 and 2021. Very, very good player at Walter State in the junior college ranks. And, of course, Walter State right up the road at Morristown, Tennessee. I'll get to his stats here in a moment, but played at Walter State through the 21 season, transferred to North Carolina, played for the Tar Heels in 22, 23, and 24. So, under the old rule, his collegiate eligibility is done. But because of the Diego Pavia lawsuit that the NCAA is now granting former JUCO players who were seniors another year of eligibility, not just for football, but for all sports, you're seeing a couple different players around the country. You know, there's a star player at Georgia that's going through the same thing. You're seeing a guy at Kansas State, I believe. I mean, you're seeing different scenarios and different players having these situations like what's going on here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So, it was a matter of if Tennessee could get him eligible, if they felt confident enough to get him eligible, he was going to transfer here. And the news broke from a baseball outlet, and then, of course, me and the other local guys reported on it Friday night as well, that Alberto Osuna is committing and transferring to the University of Tennessee. To make this situation even that much more wild, because he was out of Division I eligibility, I have no clue. Don't even ask me. I've asked for clarification on this several times. I still don't get it. Because he was out of Division I eligibility, he somehow still had D2 eligibility. Okay, so he was at Tampa. Tampa is a Division II powerhouse. Tampa won the Division II national championship a season ago. He played with Tampa during the fall. And I think I was looking at Tampa's Twitter feed, and I think his birthday was sometime in January. I mean, it's as late as a couple of weeks ago, they wished him a happy birthday, like from the team account. And so he was full-fledged ready to go and play for them. But because of this ruling, and if he wants to have a future in baseball at all, except, outside of a UFA deal, undrafted free agent deal, he's already been through a couple of draft cycles. You need to go to the SEC and see if you can hold weight, see if you can hold water and see what happens. And certainly that's what he's trying to do this year. So I spoke with some people over the weekend, and it was told to me like, hey, we would not have brought him here if we weren't fully confident that he was going to be cleared, going to be eligible. It feels like a formality at this point, but as of right now, at the time of this recording, he is not eligible. But again, feels like a formality. He will get there because, again, you've got that blanket waivers that are being granted to players like him who are in such situations that are former junior college players. So with that, all that being said, we'll kind of track that as the week goes on, leading up into opening day next Friday. He's going to have a physical first of this week. He should be able to hit the practice field here in the next day or two, and I'll be over there to see if we see him out there. But having said all that, what does this addition of Alberto Osuna mean for Tennessee, Tony Vitello, and potentially the Tennessee lineup? Well, here's the thing. He's going to have to come in here and earn it. It's not like you're guaranteed a starting spot. You're not guaranteed at bats. You're going to have to come in here and earn it. But he is a guy that has been there, done that. He's a guy that's played really, really good baseball. He was a part of North Carolina's College World Series team last year. The team that played Tennessee in the College World Series, lost 6-1. The game where Hunter Ensley ran into the wall. The game where, I think it was Xander Seacrest that was on the mound. He's been there, done that. In 2024, let's see here, 2024 of this past season, he hit for a .259 average, started 62 games, 14 home runs, 56 RBI, started all but 4 games as the club's designated hitter, the other 4 games at first base. In 2023, you had Osuna that hit for a .223 average in 52 games, 48 starts, 11 home runs, 27 RBI. He dealt with an injury that year. His best season at the D1 level was actually his first season up from JUCO in 2022, 63 games, 61 starts for the Tar Heels, 20 home runs, 57 RBI, 86 strikeouts, 27 walks, a .265 batting average. He's 6'1", 245 pounds, primarily been a designated hitter for North Carolina, but when he's played the field, he's played first base. His strikeouts have gone down. He was a high strikeout guy early in his career at North Carolina. His strikeouts have gone down. His walks have gone up. His average has kind of been a little all over the place. That first year, 265 was good. 2023's average, 223 was not good, but last year, 260, that's not bad as long as you're producing like he was. He is going to be an option for Tennessee to look at first base. He's going to be an option for Tennessee to have that bat in the middle of the order. When he was at Walter State, he was named the 2021 NJCAA D1 Player of the Year, a first-team All-American, and the Tennessee Community College Athletic Association Player of the Year. In 2021 with Walter State, which, again, there's dudes drafted out of there every single year. Man, when I was a kid, I used to go up and watch Walter State games because there were some dudes that were going to be playing in the bigs. He hit .459 with 25 bombs, 107 RBI in 68 games in 2021. Oh, my goodness. He absolutely torched it. He's from Malden High School in South Carolina, where he was an all-state player. Again, he's going to be an option for Tennessee at DH and, of course, at first base. Tennessee, Alex Perry, we reported that, once the team got back on campus in January, reported that he was not going to be with the team this spring, and that was unexpected for Tennessee. He was a guy that I wasn't going to say starting. It wasn't going to start at first base, but he was in competition to start at first base. But also, he was a right-handed bat, and because of his absence, Tennessee needed another option there and needed a right-handed bat. And that's when Tennessee started to explore the possibility of Alberto Osuna. And they thought it was going to be a possibility, and they're going to make it a reality. Of course, still waiting official eligibility clearance, but that it seems like that is going to happen over the course of the next couple of days, at least leading into opening day, and I'm going to be tracking that. But this is a guy, of course, he's going to have to come in and earn it, but a guy that's been there, done that, played on good teams, has hit with the best of them in this league. North Carolina's a really good ball club. ACC is a good baseball conference. Again, a guy that's going to compete with Dalton Barco. He's going to compete with redshirt freshman Stone Lawless, compete with true freshman Levi Clark. All those guys are really, really solid options, but his bat's been tested. His bat's been proven. So I thought this was really, really big news. And again, a lot of you guys listening right now, that you don't follow Tennessee baseball day to day. You don't check in with Tennessee baseball until maybe the postseason. That's all fine. The reigning national champions got even better with a late addition to the roster heading into 2025. And if you're Alberto Osuna, you were in a good spot at Tampa, the reigning national champion Division II program, but you leave something that was, safe to go to something that's not guaranteed at bats or a spot on the field. But knowing his track record, I think Tennessee's going to find a place to play him, but he's got to come in there and earn it. So some big news, some big baseball news over the weekend. Tennessee picking up the transfer edition of designated hitter first baseman, former North Carolina Tar Heel, former Walter State Seminole, Alberto Osuna. All right, guys, appreciate you for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. Don't forget, Twitter Tuesday coming up tomorrow, mailbag show. Send in those questions, those comments, those concerns. What do you guys have? Please send them in there at _Caner at Locked On Vols. You can comment on this episode on YouTube, and you can hit me up on Instagram, wherever, DM, Twitter, all that and more. Twitter Tuesday coming up on tomorrow's show. Appreciate you guys, as always, for making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch. Hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed to the channel. Please download these episodes, subscribe and download these episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, all that and more. As always, thank you guys so much for making the show what it is. We'll do it again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.